From the city to the counties, from the mountains to the ocean, Maryland's weather source has declared a weather alert day. And that weather alert day is for a winter storm that is impending. Hope you've had a good week. Hope you've been able to enjoy some good weather, somewhat tame weather, because although it's been cold, it's going to get colder from here, and the conditions will only get downhill from here at least through Sunday and Monday. Elephant in the room, we have the big system to talk about here. We'll just go into detail region by region here in a second. Behind that, it is going to be brutally cold. We have to worry about refreezes. Wind chills will be a factor, especially by midweek. It is insult on top of injury. I have weather aware days for that as well. Looking at the context here, by the numbers, it has just been a very, very long time since we've had significant, substantial snowfall in a single event. The last double-digit snowstorm was the Great Snowstorm of 2016, if you remember that. That was 10 years ago this week. It was 29 inches and change at Thurgood. Other locations had 3 feet plus. Could we get to double digits? I think we can, but it's dependent on what I call the 3 T's. When you look at a winter storm, you have to pay attention to these. And forgive me, the graphics are going to look a little wonky here for a second because reasons. But track, timing, and type. Track, right now, the center of the low is going to curl out over the Outer Banks and then curl along the coastline, which would mean a warm sector pushing northward. We rarely ever get a pure snowstorm across most, if not the entirety of the state. It just almost never happens. And that will be, once again, proven as status quo. The timing, as we have mentioned at perpetuity, late Saturday, all day Sunday, early Monday. If you've seen my socials, I've talked about this Wednesday. I talked about this Thursday. The model guidance has been all over the place. But right now, the timing is really starting to become consistent. The track is starting to become consistent. And therefore, the type is starting to become consistent as well between the model guidance. West of 81 and 15, mainly snow. Along the 95 corridor, snow, sleet, freezing rain. Snow, sleet, freezing rain, and rain, all modes are possible south of the 5301 corridor, down in the lower eastern shore and the lower Delmarva Peninsula. That's the general rundown of that. Let's get into more detail here. I will bring it over to the Weather Nerds models because I think Weather Nerds does a really good job of plotting the points for the totals later on, as you'll see. But right now, this is the GFS, and I will back this up in time just to give you a rundown. It'll be very cold Saturday. Saturday is arguably an aware day, even though I didn't put it down in the forecast. It's just going to be very, very cold, and you want to bundle up. Here's a lowdown on this. Here is 7 p.m. Saturday evening. The snow's starting to creep in. By 1 a.m., everybody's getting snow. Here is 7 a.m. Sunday morning, and this is probably when the snow is heaviest for everybody before the afternoon changeover. Watch this. So this would be 1 p.m. Sunday afternoon. We get that rain-snow line to push more north, and throughout the afternoon and evening, it will continue to do so. It actually may get as far north, the rain line at least, I would argue, may get as far north as, let's say, the Choptank River, the Wicomico River. It'll be close, but we'll get a mixing in a lot of locations. And the GFS, I think, is underselling how much that rain mix line is pushing. I think the Euro is more reliable, as you'll see in a second. Pardon me. But as you see, it pushes out. We have cold air on the back end of this, so we may get some remixing for our areas that had rain earlier in the day Sunday, late in the day Sunday, and into Monday morning as the system pulls away. Let me pull up Euro, because I think the Euro is very interesting with that. Give it a second to load. There we go. And as you'll see here, here is 1 a.m. Actually, no, that's 7 p.m. The Euro is actually pushing the timing a little bit back, just slightly, but even then, I think it's late Saturday night it starts, and then into Sunday, it's really, really bad in the morning. So here is 1 a.m. Sunday, 7 a.m. once again, heavier. The Euros, you could see in the afternoon, 1 p.m., that rain-snow line is starting to push. And that mixing line actually gets as far north as 95, if not even more north than that. And then we push out some of the snow on the back end. And actually, what I'll do, I think it would be better if we go into 3-hour intervals here. So you'll see this in better detail. there it is. You can see that snow mixing line pushing back north. I think the Euro might be thinking here, hey, there may be mixing in Western Maryland, but I think it's generally going to be snow. I think the temperatures will just be too cold for any mixing to happen unless you really have some warm temperatures in the mid levels. Even then, it's going to mix around in central Maryland, the eastern shore, the Delmarva, and then we'll get some rain as well in the southeast. So that's the general timing and the consensus agreement on this. I want to see if the 12Z came in, the latest run that I would have. Do we have that by chance? No, we don't. Okay. So what I will do is we will go back in time and then I will pull up our snow totals. And this is using a dynamic ratio that they have here on the Weather Nerds website. 10 to 1 sometimes works, but I will say this. It is flawed to some degree and it doesn't factor in certain aspects that may be important in a forecast like this. But the Euro is pointing towards a substantial snowfall, let's say in Western Maryland, that could be big time. And then you see here in the metro, it's a mixed bag. Depends on where you are to some degree. Locally, there could be some heavy spots. And then down the Delmarva, that tapers off as you get that changeover to rain. Let me show you the GFS here and what that shows. GFS, more aggressive. And I think that was the second most recent run. I'll show you the most recent run that we have of the GFS. And I do this on the fly because I want to show you my process into making these forecasts. And the GFS has been more aggressive with this, but historically speaking, the Euro has been more reliable. And when the Euro has been more reliable with this, usually you go with the Euro in past events. So I'm thinking more towards the agreement of the Euro in terms of that aspect of how much snow are we going to get. Now, there's another website I want to show you here that I use to kind of track this, and this uses a different ratio, the Kuchera ratio, which accounts a lot of different things into factor as well, which I think is a little bit better than 10 to 1, especially in a situation like this. If I can get into the screen here, and we will talk total snow accumulation and loop that in, you'll see that the Euro from this morning is a little aggressive. We're seeing some totals, wow, 13, 14 inches or more. And that's why I said this morning when I was looking at some of this, and it tapers off once you get to the south and east. But still, that's a lot of snow to contend with. And we're going to have big problems if that does come to fruition. So I just wanted to show you these just because there's a lot going on. And there's a lot of moving parts to this forecast. And now things are starting to line up. We're starting to get agreements when we have had disagreements and changes between the different major models all week long. Also, one more thing I want to show you here is our watches and warning situation. And it updated since the last I tried to look at the maps here. So winter storm warning is in place for all of central Maryland, all of southern Maryland, western Maryland, and most of the eastern shore. So Cecil, Kent, Queen Anne's, Caroline, Talbot, and just those counties. I was gonna say Dorchester, but Dorchester's still under the winter storm watch in the blue. Wycomico, Somerset, and Worcester are also in it too. And I think the National Weather Service at Wakefield's also playing this out, seeing what's going on. And Wakefield, which is the Richmond, Norfolk office, controls these southern counties, Cambridge, Dorchester County, Southward. And what I think they're trying to deliberate is just the mixing in of the sleet, the freezing rain, and then eventually the rain changeover. How does that impact the totals? And does that play a role in really inhibiting how much of the winter weather threat we really do see down in these areas? They may do a warning, but they may also, I really want to stress this, they may also do a winter weather advisory as well. So just keep that in mind down in Dorchester County, Somerset County, Wycomico, Worcester. So that's a general rundown of that. And then let me just show you real quick. I'll get into the actual radar system and show you the satellite and then the composite. This is the system. It's going to gather moisture from the Gulf. There could be big ice storm problems out in the southern states here for tomorrow. So if you have any family out that way, you might want to check in on them because it's going to be a problem. And then that's going to move northeast. And what's really going to make this a cold weather situation, this front that is moving throughout the time of this recording. You can see it here basically lined up along 81, pushing east. That will usher in the cold air that will bring our winter element to the system and really complicate things as we head throughout the weekend. And then there's a secondary front back north that will bring in some more cold air and reinforce that as we head into the upcoming work week. Let me do this real quick. We'll bring it back to graphics. We already mentioned all the T factors. And just give you a rundown of what to expect. Mainly snow back west, snow and mix in central and southern Maryland into the eastern shore, and then all three modes are possible really along and south of the 5301 corridor, Talbot, Caroline, perhaps Queen Anne's County a little bit, and then definitely down to Dorchester, Wycomico, Somerset, and Worcester counties as well. Totals, the big question for everybody. Here's my forecast. A foot to 14 inches out west. Locally, could there be 16 plus, especially in higher elevations? Can't rule that out. In the blue, Metro, Southern Maryland, I'm saying a broader 6 to 9 inches of snow. Locally, 10, maybe a foot in some locations if we get under some heavy pockets, especially early on in the event. 3 to 6 in the teal, locally up to 7. That would be our middle, eastern shore, Southern Maryland communities here. Really, I'd say Charlotte Hall, Prince Frederick, south and east, and then that light teal, almost like a very bluish white, 2 to 5 locally. Could I rule out half a foot up towards the Choptank River? No, but even then, I think that kind of is asking a lot. But that's the general rundown of what I have in terms of the early snowfall total forecast, and I'm going to stress this. It is subject to change, so you want to keep it here, keep it close to a source of weather information throughout the weekend. It will be very important that you do so. Rarely ever do we have days where you need to be glued to a source of the weather information across the state per year, but this is one of them. Weekend, for all the reasons we just discussed, it's a 1. Duh. For the week, I'm going to be honest, it's a 1 too. This is the first double 1 that I've done on the old meter. It is very, very cold next week. It'll be dangerously cold. Wind chills are going to be brutal at times, especially with a second dip in the jet stream that will bring in some really cold air midweek. That will really be a problem. So I just hope we don't lose too much power and we can get that restored, because that will be a big issue moving forward if we do happen to have power outages, because this is just dangerously, if not deadly cold weather, if not respected and not treated with precaution. Western Maryland, very cold Saturday. We have the snow Sunday, very cold. We have the mixing down south in Southern Maryland in the DC Metro. Eastern Shore, it's going to depend on your location. We may get above freezing here south of 50 and 301, as I mentioned, Cordova, Denton, St. Michael's south, but I think northward, let's say Tolchester to Chestertown, Cecilton north, it will remain just cold enough where we will have just mainly snow and then a mix. But Eastern Shore situation is going to be a little bit more complicated. Saturday's cold. We will get the snow to start off Sunday, and then the warm sector pushes north, and we'll get into the 40s down in the Delmarva for both the inland and the shore areas. So there's that changeover, but then on the back end of that, we'll get some more cold air, and it will be cold next week statewide. Looking here, here's our aware days for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. That's just because the wind chills are going to be a big problem. We may have another clipper system on Thursday that may bring some snow. I'm calling it 30% right now, but notice those wind chills, 10 to, let's say, 15, maybe 17 degrees Tuesday and Wednesday in terms of how it feels, and then 5 to 10 Thursday as that second clipper comes through with the dig in the jet stream, and that is just going to be a bad deal. 20 and 8. Let that sink in. Look at our morning lows. 4 degrees Tuesday morning. And then Friday, not much better. Wind chills will be between 5 and 10. The dig in the jet next week is going to really, really be a problem. And I just hope that you are prepared for the cold weather after the elephant in the room. Please be safe. Do not commute if you don't have to this weekend. And I'm long-winded. That's all I got. Stay close to my socials here. I believe I'm at J Mitchell WX on all socials. Um, X, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, I'm on, I know, as well, and Blue Sky, and of course, YouTube as well. We'll see what happens with coverage this weekend, but please be mindful of that. Have multiple ways to get warnings and critical information. Stay safe. I'm Jay Mitchell for 4 WX.